Where are we? Where are we? Hold on. That's not it. That's it there.
You're listening to the Nerds Out of Order podcast, Nerd News, with Michael Lobb and David Camus.
Hello and welcome to Nerds Out of Water. This is a podcast brought to you by Michael Lobb and David Camus. We are two good friends who have been partnering on and off for around about 20 years. Michael runs TeamScale. TeamScale help companies keep software development projects on track and on budget.
And David runs One Bright Cloud, where he heads up a team of techs and futurists looking at autonomous vehicles, AI, and public safety. We challenge our own perspectives, and we try to see things from each other's perspectives. Most of the time, sometimes no. You don't need to agree with us, but after listening to the podcast, you'll definitely have an idea. So what's been happening in your world, David? Are you scrubbing your hands and staying at home?
Well, since our conversation back in November, was it, about scrubbing the phones, I think everyone has been scrubbing keyboards and scrubbing hands and scrubbing everything. It's been a very long journey for everyone, and I think people are looking at how COVID-19 is now changing the way everyone will be working for 6 months, 5 years.
At least. Yeah.
Plenty of time.
I think there will be a new normal. I don't think it's going to go back to what we used to know as normal.
I think I'll agree with you there.
International travel looks like it won't happen for the rest of the year.
Well, that's a good point. I'm meant to be in the UK in 2 weeks. I still haven't got any statements around about what Virgin Airlines are doing at the moment. I know as of last night they went on to a trading halt, so I don't know what that means. I think it's just the stock exchange while they're working out how they're going to manage finances, but Qantas,
they've called in administrators, I think.
No. Don't tell me that. Yeah. What am I going to do with my 350,000 points?
Yeah. No, I think I was reading an article earlier about Virgin being. I don't know if they've gone. I don't think they've gone into administration, but I think at this point in time they're talking to experts who can help them navigate these changes and craziness.
It is a crazy time. I agree, and me losing points is the least of everybody's worries, and I, as most people, have now been affected in different ways by the coronavirus. I've had colleagues who have passed on as per the last podcast we put out, and I've got family over in the UK who are suffering through some fairly difficult times over there. Yourself?
Wow. I was in New Zealand, as you know, and got back to Australia the day before they introduced no flights.
Wow.
That was pretty awful. So, unfortunately, my dad is very sick, so I was over there trying to, be close to him, and now I can't. So that's going to be a bit crazy. The other thing is my team in Vietnam have been working at home for probably months now. We're still paying rent on an office, and we're still looking at having to go into the office every now and then to pick something up. But there's fewer and fewer people who are actually working from a desk in an office now. Certainly, if you're one of the primary industries where you're looking after people, or you're driving a truck or something like that to deliver food, then you can't work from home. But a lot of office workers are now working from home.
Yeah, and I think
you and I are used to working from home anyway, so it's no difference for us. But for some people, that's actually quite a challenge.
It is indeed. I agree. You and I will often talk to each other from home, from our home offices. But just going back onto something about the frontline staff, people think of our ambos and our shops being frontline staff, our fireys and our policemen. But a new norm is coming out with frontline staff. You would never think a shop attendant was frontline staff until 2 months ago. You wouldn't think your postie or your truck driver was frontline staff until 2 months ago. All of these services, even your plumbers, are now frontline staff because they get called out to houses where there's a burst pipe, where there's a leaking roof, where there's electrical fault. And they are all now frontline staff. And I'm very lucky. I'm stuck at my house on some acreage, and I don't see many people. We're quite well locked down, but I take my hat off to many, many people.
Yeah,
and I know that when we had when this all started, we actually had a water leak, and I had to call the plumber out. And I thought back then, oh my gosh, poor guy. He's got no idea what house he's coming into, what sickness he might be coming into.
Yeah, exactly. And, I feel for the people who are working in stores such as, Woolies and Coles, the post office, things like that, because they've got people coming up to them every day. And those people are not necessarily respectful, or, they think of frontline workers as, as you said, ambulance drivers, ambulance workers, nurses, doctors. But these people are playing a very important role to keep the nation running.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting that the attacks we used to see on our emergency staff and on our AMBOs, as well as the police and the fires, but on those specifically, they're now coming into our shopping centres. They're coming into the Coles, the Woolworths, the Morrisons, the Tesco's. And I just think human behaviour can be downright rude and really hurtful at times. And admittedly, we see the bad far more than we see the good. Yeah.
Yeah, for the 30,000 people going through a shop in one day, there's probably one or two assholes, and
Yep, that's right.
We focus on them, unfortunately.
We do, and we don't focus enough on the everyday people who are putting out the teddy bears at the side of the in the windows, and who are clapping at our frontline staff. And my family are full of frontline staff, and I feel for them. And I think, wow. And then I think about the military services who are now being pulled in to help look after us as well.
Yeah, definitely. We've got Anzac Day coming up here, which is a celebration of the close bond between Australia and New Zealand's military units.
It is. It's the remembrance of the Aussies and the New Zealand Army Corps who fought and died for their country during the Second World War.
Yeah. So during that time, we're obviously not going to be able to do what we normally do, which is go and pay our respects to those people. We had a notice around the other day that they wanted us to go out onto our front lawns and do what we could to play the last post, whether that's through a radio or a trumpet, or I might drag a guitar amp out there and try and do it. Maybe not, but we'll see how we go.
That's a great statement. Yes, so that during the last post, I think I will try and do that. I will try and work out what time other people are doing it and join in.
So what are you doing to look after yourself?
Well, as you know, I'm very lucky. I'm on a bit of an acreage. We have a creek down the back. We've got 3 little children, so 10-year-old twins and a 12-year-old, and they're not that little. And they can cycle around our acreage. They've got trampolines. We don't have a swimming pool, but we go down to the creek, and we have been damming the creek, and then it's been washing away 10 minutes later, and then we just keep doing that. So that's what we've been doing from a children point of view. From a work point of view, I have to say One Bright Cloud have been severely hit financially, and we're really struggling to get things through. We're pushing to keep things going, and we'll keep it going. We'll come out the other end. We'll have some hard decisions to make, and we've made some hard decisions already. But as you are, we work from home. The team have been working from home, and when we've been able to give them assignments, that we've been doing it.
Do you think that Australia got it right in their response?
Oh, did we get it right?
I mean, just
I
to
worry.
to quantify that, like I said, I was in New Zealand. I think that they did what Australia had done when they had under 100 cases, and Vietnam haven't even got up to 200 cases. Oh, I think they're a little bit over 200 cases now, but 100 and something of them have recovered, no deaths. Australia waited for me. I think it was a lot longer than they should have, but obviously the economy was the reason for that, and I don't know if that's a good reason or it's just an excuse.
Well,
And I'm not trying to say it was bad. I'm not trying to say that the response was bad, but it's I in retrospect I would have liked to have seen it happen earlier, even though it would have affected me personally.
I think you've nailed it on the head by saying in retrospect. I don't think there was a right way or a wrong way. I believe that we've all been trying really hard to get through this and to work it out. The governments have been trying the best way they can. To me, I look at other countries like Vietnam, like my brother in the Czech Republic. They locked down far earlier than we did, and they have only got 6,000 cases with, I think, just over 100 deaths, but very few compared with all of the countries, Germany, Austria, Italy, that are surrounding them. And they really locked it down really well and really early. And they literally sent everybody home saying, your next paycheck will be in November. Yeah. And they put the whole economy on stop. Now, could we have done that? Oh, yes. We could have done it quicker in retrospect, as you say. My biggest worry is that if we've done it so well, I apologize. If we've done it so well that we're going to get the second wave come through. And when that second wave comes through, we're going to be almost less prepared for it.
Okay.
It's a worry of mine. I don't know if it's factual or whether it's just in my head, but I don't know if there is a good way or a bad way of doing it. I do worry about a second wave coming through.
Okay. Do you, we'll talk about short term in a moment, but how do you think the economy can recover from this after this is all stitched up and we're back to whatever the new normal is? How do you think the economy can recover from this?
Well, I think we need to look at what that new normal is. I think businesses need to really consider what we're going to look at, especially from an IT, a consultancy, a contractor point of view. And something that you and I have been pushing for a long time is you don't have to be in the building to do the work. From that respect, I think there's going to be a very big change about city life and where cities are and how they operate. I believe my teams are going to be pulling out of the city and doing it from a distance, as they've already started doing. And I think that's going to build up and build up and build up. There's a number of bodies that are really looking into this now, and I think they're going to be very successful into understanding what that new norm will look like. But in that short term, the government have got to really come up and provide the packages, and I think we're going to talk about those packages in a minute.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the things that will come out of this, and I've noticed it, especially where I live, is this a sense of community. We have never really connected with our neighbours as much in modern society as we used to, and I think now people are actually stepping up, and since this has started, we've had Facebook groups start just with the local neighbours and the local people. We've been talking about different who can do what for each other. I've got some friends overseas who are doing similar sorts of things. Who's in your apartment block, and understanding who's there and when do they need to be checked on, so that we can actually, so they can actually go and check on them, and so nobody's actually having a problem that they can't reach out to someone for.
Yeah, and I think that sense of community is coming through everywhere. The number of people who've said, it's taken COVID-19 for me to actually speak to my neighbour.
Yeah, interesting, hey?
And that's a scary thought, because we used to have the village with the central focus point being the village green, and now we don't have that, and we have lost contact with our neighbours. And I think that's something that's going to change.
It has to. And I think that's that on the social side. It's done what it's had a positive effect on the social side of things.
Yep.
The same way that it's had a positive effect on the business side of things in forcing digital transformation. We can't have ever done this digital transformation for corporates on our own, because people were so insistent on having a bum on a seat.
Correct. That's right.
Now it's like, well, you can't have that. If you're a non-essential worker, you have to be at home and doing this. How do we do that? I heard that headsets had sold out.
Headsets, monitors, keyboards,
Yeah.
mice. The things you use every single day, and you just pop down the shop and you grab one. They're all running out.
It's not just toilet paper.
Not just toilet paper. Who'd think it?
So you mentioned before the stimulus packages that have come from the Australian government.
Yep.
Do you want to go through those?
Well, I as I said on our last podcast, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm going to talk about financial things here, but I am just a business owner who has been looking at what we can do for my staff and what the staff are doing around us. And I know that we are looking at a number of really good incentives, as long as they actually come through. A couple of those are the the job keeper incentive, and also the concessional loan, which are coming through. One of those is through Q-Rider in Queensland. They will provide stimulus for keeping employees on. It won't be their full wage, but it will be something to keep your employees moving on. If you can't keep those employees moving on, then they can look at the job seeker. To me, the job seeker is another form of the unemployment benefit. That's just a changed name. And with that comes a whole load of additional benefits and financial incentives to purchase into the economy still. So to purchase screens, to purchase computers. It's only a small amount, but it keeps the economy moving. And I think both the feds and the state are trying hard here. I know with the concessional loan facility, which is a loan of, I believe, up to 10 years, tax-free, interest-free. And most businesses are able to get that if they are more than 3 years old. Anything under 3 years old is classed as a startup business and therefore won't be eligible for the concessional loan. But again, go and talk to your accountant and ask them what you can do. The banks have been asked, the four major banks have been asked to come on board. Yep.
Startups aren't, sorry to interrupt, startups are not included in this, is that?
Startups are not included. And startups to me are something that's less than 6 months old, maybe a year. Yeah. But the concessional loan has put it 3 years. The four major banks have been asked to reduce their loan criteria to allow businesses to get loans from them, and they are standard loans. So be careful if you go down that path, because all you're doing is getting yourselves into debt again. And that's a decision you have to do on a lot of these things. Do you get yourself into further debt to keep the business running, or do you close the business up?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it is a hard choice, because most small businesses are family run, have got a director or a number of directors who've got a heartfelt stake in the business, and they don't want to close the doors.
Yeah.
I look at you and me.
Yeah, exactly. We could, a lot of our work is done remotely. It's done for clients who have businesses that are family run or, that are the government. But the the issue that some people have, especially in those family-run businesses that have been around for a long time and they've got a loyal following, they don't want to shut it down because that's what they've been building to hand on to their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. I know that we've been through bushfires that have ravaged this country as well earlier in the year, and that's already seen a lot of the primary industries in those areas affected. So this is just another nail in the coffin for some of these folks.
And with that thought, we actually still haven't caught up with the bushfire grants that people have applied for.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, for individuals, there are a number of things, whether that's that job seeker, the ability to access super, so your superannuation. What are your thoughts on that one?
So a really tough one.
People are accessing their super early, which means
they've got less money to retire on.
Yeah, they won't have it later on.
It's a tough one. It's the same as you said before. You're essentially taking on debt. You're borrowing from the future, and that has to be repaid, whether that's in cash or in a degraded level of lifestyle in the future after you've retired,
or while you're still working, while you're putting top-up super in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And then, of course, for companies and businesses, there's all the tax write-offs, so instant assets, asset depreciation, and that sort of thing. But again, if you're in trouble, the first thing to do is to talk to someone, so you don't have that all on your heart. Talk to someone. And the second thing to do is to talk to an accountant, someone who actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, I know that our accountant has given us a list of things we've spoken about, and the other cool thing is my old accountant has actually sent out a bunch of emails that cover this in great detail, which I'm really thankful for. So if you don't have an accountant that's doing that, then maybe you should, maybe it's time to switch. And I'm not going to give any. Well, if you want any recommendations, give me a yell. Happy to talk to you about who we use.
Or reach out to your accountant and find out why, because maybe you're just not on their email list. Simple as that.
Yeah, maybe you're going to your spam. Yeah. Okay. So that's the stimulus packages. There's eligibility criteria as well. You have to have lost a revenue of 30% and be able to prove that. There's a lot of industries, cafes, restaurants, anything in the tourism industry, or a lot of non-essential trade would have been affected quite considerably. The companies that are going to in the future lose out on revenue because they are in a situation that they can't currently manage. How do they become eligible? Is it ongoing eligibility, or is it just a it has to be now?
I don't really know. These stimulus packages are changing by the day. The ones I spoke about have now been, I believe, approved by the feds and the state and are starting to be rolled out. But there will be new stimulus packages coming on. I think you'll find that similar to when we were going through the GFC, we'll get some payments handed out, such as the electricity bill being paid off and the telephone bill being subsidised, not paid off. And I think we'll get instant payments to allow for us to purchase items that will then go back into the economy and start the economy turning over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen that happen before, and
we have.
There's always the joke about people taking their stimulus payment down to buy a flat screen TV.
Correct, and that's what they do.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter if it's a flat screen TV or, dare I say it, 600 rolls of toilet paper. It's still going back into the economy, and it's still being turned over so that the economy has a turn through.
Yeah. The travel industry has obviously been decimated. The they're going to have to rely on these stimulus packages quite considerably, I think, in order to survive the next few months, however long that is. Restaurants and cafes that have been affected by this probably won't ever open up again, some of them. The people that have been running these cafes for a number of years are probably living week to week. So in terms of, they need throughput in their company to be able to pay their rent and their staff, and they're just not going to be able to do that. So we're going to come out of this with some very sad stories, but also some opportunity as well. So my heart goes out to those people as they're dealing with this as well.
I agree. But the travel industry's been hit incredibly hard. It also worries me how many companies and businesses will come out through the other side of this with an amount of debt that they can't pay off.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I think
so
we'll see
you and I are both
in. Sorry.
You and I are both in technology, and the thing that I'm advising clients or really anyone is switch stuff off if you don't need it. Like there are probably a bunch of internal things that you've got running that you don't need to run. If you're especially in larger companies and small companies, sure, there's probably not a lot you can do, but in a medium to large size company, you've got all this internal stuff that you don't need running. CRMs, who's doing sales at the moment? That we've got probably internal staging and testing servers for all sorts of development processes. Sure, if you're doing development at the moment, but if you've just laid off 50 developers, then there's no point in having those environments running, is it?
That's right.
There's probably cost savings that you should be looking at before you start taking on debt, if you can.
And there may be no other way.
Yeah.
But with the travel agencies and the travel industry, they have to keep the doors open somehow. They have to keep people looking at the future. And you need to, if I was in the travel industry, well, I suppose I am in a way, I would be doing promotions for 2 years ahead. I would be keeping people on a email list. I would be building incentives around that email, keeping the doors open, not physically, but availability-wise. The doors should be open, and people should be, now's the time to start looking in the future. Here's the sales. Think of the...
If you're not doing that, you will shut down, and that doesn't have to be expensive, and that's what a lot of people that I'm talking to are kind of confused about, is that doing that activity is not expensive. They might have been sold, vendors might have said to them, you need to buy 18 licenses at $900 a month and whatever. It should cost you $20 a month, $40 a month if you're a small to medium sized company and you haven't already invested in that. There's much better ways to do that, but you could do it quite cost effectively.
So thinking about that, and with the looking at businesses working from home, we have now an issue that everyone is just logging onto the internet willy-nilly. Big businesses have got Citrix clients and dedicated VPNs, etc., etc. What do you think small businesses should be looking at from a VPN point of view? And on top of that, how should we look at video communications? Because there's some really expensive ways of doing this, and there's free ways of doing this. And I'm interested to know what your thoughts are from your experience.
You talked about VPNs. Now, in an ideal world, where people wake up in the morning and there's unicorns jumping on rainbows, you would
love those unicorns.
You would develop your systems as such that they are that employ zero trust. So your application should be built to be on the internet and to be secure on the internet. Unfortunately, that's not how things work in a lot of larger entities, and especially some, and even some smaller companies as well. As such, they need to introduce things like VPNs or which, for those who don't know, is a virtual private network. And they need to introduce gateway computers or Citrix clients, like you said, or terminal servers, or ways, two-factor authentication implementations, for example. Now, there's two kinds of VPNs here. A VPN that connects to a corporate network is different to a VPN that you would purchase on a subscription that allows you to encrypt traffic on the way to the internet and the way from the internet. Both serve a slightly different purpose. One of the corporate VPN will put you onto a company's network and allow you to access internal resources as if you were in the office still. Same as a gateway server or even a Citrix server to a degree. Setting those up, they need to be secure because they are allowing access to their internal networks, and they're pretty important. A lot of big companies have done this, or it doesn't have to cost a lot either. Most decent routers and would probably have some sort of VPN functionality if you needed it. And then there's the other VPNs which encrypt traffic to the internet and from the internet. So a VPN like that, like ExpressVPN or NordVPN, allow you a little bit of anonymity on the internet. That's a hard word to say. And give the traffic that you're sending, it encrypts the traffic that you're sending to the internet and receiving from the internet. So therefore, in theory, people should not be able to see where you are on the internet. It also gives you a different IP address. That won't put you on the corporate network, but it will give you a little bit of extra protection if you're transferring data, for example. I use both. I use a corporate VPN to get into our network and to get onto servers and systems that I need access to. I also use ExpressVPN, which I use. Actually, the primary use for me using ExpressVPN is testing from different locations, because a lot of the things we do are location based. So if I want to check how a particular website looks in the USA, for example, I would change my endpoint to the USA. In terms of video chat, now that's a really interesting one, and we've had this question so many times. We actually set up a tool, which I'll distribute after this, to help you figure out what to use. There are so many different options out there at the moment. Zoom has been getting a lot of press, good and bad. Good because it's actually really easy to use, and my mum can use it, and other people in the community can use it pretty easily. It's free up to 40 minutes, or if it's only a one-on-one call, then you can use it for as long as you like. And it's pretty inexpensive as well. There are the Microsoft and Google versions, Teams and Hangouts. Teams is the Microsoft version, so if you're using Office 365, you've probably got access to Teams, and you can probably do video calls within your team. Hangouts is the same, but for Google, and Google have actually made that part of every G Suite product at the moment, I think, just during this pandemic. If you're using Slack, that's got video conferencing built in, so I'd be using that. Then there's the good old ones like Skype, which is free. It's owned by Microsoft, but it's, lots of people use it. And Facebook Messenger, which again is, fine if you're just calling one or two people.
Yeah.
I still use WhatsApp and Viber and everything as well, so that's fine.
Yeah, I use WhatsApp a lot for one-on-ones, but Zoom is something that I have used for a few years now, and I find Zoom has worked really well for us. Interesting to hear that you've heard some negative reports about it, but that doesn't surprise me.
Security mainly because I think they from what I can gather, they've prioritized functionality over security, and the security breaches aren't so bad. Well, they could be bad, could be considered bad, but The biggest one was that you get now that it's being used more, you can get Zoom pop-ins. So you might be in a video conference and a random person might pop in because you're using a link that is,
an older link or something.
No, yeah, it's available and there's no password to get in because you've just sent that out in an email and someone's intercepted it or guessed it and pop in. And I think that there was a school session going on where a guy turned up in his underwear on
lovely
in the States somewhere, and not great.
I believe the defence in the UK use WhatsApp because of its security. Do you know anything about that?
WhatsApp is owned by Facebook.
Oh, is it?
So
there we go.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of friends in communities that require a lot more security, whether they're black hat or white hat, tend to use Signal or Telegram. But the reason is because it's peer-to-peer encryption, and that's pretty important to people.
So what makes a poor VPN then? Why? Because I've just brought up an article in front of me, and it says the worst VPN services in 2020, and it mentions Hola, Hotspot, Opera Free, some that I've never even heard before, and even Facebook's Onovo VPN. And I find it interesting that there is a list of bad VPNs, and I'm just wondering.
So we're talking about the security side of the VPN, where you are trying to encrypt data going to the internet and from the internet and mask or spoof your IP address. So there's a few things. Logging is one of those big things. So the idea of wanting to use a VPN is so that you can become a little bit more anonymous. Now, if your VPN provider is logging every action that you take, you're essentially sending your traffic to the VPN server. The VPN service is then sending that data out to the internet and receiving a response and then sending that back to you. You want that to be encrypted and not logged generally. And if someone's saying that that makes it bad, then that's another thing. Speed is another issue. Like I use ExpressVPN because the VPN I was using beforehand really slowed down the internet for me. They've got to do a lot of work. It's a heavy network traffic, so
yep.
They're encrypting data, sending it to sending it across the internet and getting it back and then encrypting it again. So it's those sorts of things are pretty important. A lot of the VPN providers offer multiple connections. Like I think ExpressVPN, on my plan, I'm allowed 10 or 15 simultaneous connections, which is good because I've got multiple devices. The other reason that people will be saying they're bad is because they're trying to access their US Netflix account from Australia, for example. And a lot of these VPNs a lot of the services like Netflix, for example, they can tell whether you're on a VPN or not.
That's just damn annoying. That is.
And it's annoying because the entertainment industry has, introduced regional classing so that you can't see things in certain countries. And we're in a global economy, so I don't understand that. But I think it's, from the old days where, they didn't want to release a movie on a Tuesday in Australia, so they changed everything to Friday, and that meant that everything in the USA had to be licensed differently.
Mm-hmm. I know that there's movies that TV shows that I want to watch that are in the UK for free, but over here they're still a purchase. But if I was to put my cybersecurity hat on and I'm looking from a government point of view, Queensland government are really trying hard to push cybersecurity with VPNs, but cybersecurity as a whole out to everybody. It's a little known fact that all government agencies, however small, have to completely comply with cybersecurity. And that's information security, it's building on security, it's proving that you've got something in place. And then it's your obvious cybersecurity, so somebody trying to attack you and that sort of thing. And us as small businesses, we need to look at this as well, because our data is now being scattered. If it's in the cloud, it's most likely going to be safer than when it's sitting on a multiple number of desktops.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I started this with, I guess, is make your services zero trust so that they don't trust anything unless they've got the particular credentials that you need to get in there to do what you need to do, but only allow you to do what you need to do so that, if someone does steal your credentials or your VPN and your two-factor authentication, i.e. they break into your house and you've got your phone sitting beside your logged-in laptop on a VPN, then they can only do what you can do, and so you're limiting the risk there. But it's interesting because this doesn't have to cost a lot either.
No.
Our VPN server, it's not costing a lot of money. It's, in the $10 to $12 a month range. And that's, that will handle the traffic that we need, but, sure, that needs to scale up for larger enterprises. We don't have a lot of things that we need to protect, but we do have a need to protect our clients' information. So that's why we've implemented that. We use secure passwords. We rotate passwords if we need to. Microsoft are now saying that using a strong password is better than rotating a weak one. So
yep. I'd agree with that too.
Use two-factor authentication.
What about password? We log on to Chrome, we log on to Chromium Explorer, whatever the new one's called, and we save our passwords. And on our computer, we have all of our passwords saved. What do you think about that? Where should we be going with password security?
Yeah, so I don't know about the Chrome password manager. So I know about the Apple version, which is Keychain. That's got better now that it's got cloud access, so you can access it on multiple devices, including your phone or your laptop or your iPad. But that requires you to be on the Apple ecosystem. LastPass and OnePassword are really good password managers that work across devices and across browsers, and they also work. They use strong encryption, and most of them, or both of those products, have they allow you to work across devices and across systems, so you can install them on your phone or your iPad or your Android tablet or your Windows machine, and it works across browsers as well. The good thing about LastPass, and I don't know about OnePassword, but LastPass has it as a password audit, so it checks to make sure that you have a variety of passwords across different accounts, and if you're using a weak password in multiple places, it'll tell you. So the interesting thing about LastPass is it allows you to generate passwords, and all of these will do this. They allow you to generate a long password that you'll never remember and store that, and the goal is to get you to use a different password on every system or service. So the idea is that you need to keep your password secure and have a different password for each application or service that you're using. The goal is that you shouldn't remember it. You should only remember the last, the name LastPass is basically there because it's the last password you'll ever have to remember. Now that password should obviously be pretty strong and keep it, you need to make sure that you can remember that, because if you lose that, then you lose all of your passwords. These days we shouldn't be doing much without two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. That's just the way it is. And keeping those things secure is going to probably solve 80 to 90% of the problems that people face with hackers.
Yeah, I agree with that. And with LastPass, it actually allows you, I think a couple of them, but LastPass particularly, allows you to share passwords and share information across people securely. But you can share a login with someone and not even tell them what the password is, which is fantastic. It just fills it in for them. That's right. And they all have either a free or a paid service to be able to get your passwords back if you have forgotten your major password. And I know the one I use, you're not allowed to use the major password with any of the passwords inside. It won't let you.
Okay. Well, it's been a good discussion today. I think we should wrap it up there. And
we have. We haven't spoken about a couple of things we're going to speak about next time.
We'll talk about a couple of things next time if the world doesn't change by then, which it quite likely will. Until that time, make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, and send us any questions. If you're interested in coming on the show, give us a yell. We'd like to hear from you as well.
That would be
David.
really good. Yep. Thank you very much, Michael. Look after yourself. Keep safe. And everybody out there, you do the same.
Yep. Remember to wash your hands, people.